thanks for joining us today to discuss understanding the commodities markets. So what we have tried to do is to try to demystify what the commodities market is in Nigeria for everybody. And I hope that during this process, you have a lot to gain and also talk as much about our own play within this space as AFEX Commodities Exchange. And we feel like there's a lot that has been going on within this space, and there's few information about it outside for people. And I understand why it might seem like that, because there seems like to be a kind of mystery in terms of how commodities is, what is it about, what are the key components of the fundamentals of what the market should be like. And there's a couple of the audience now, I'm sure a couple of people in the audience to understand what it is. So it's a good way for them to also see different perspective and see what AFEX has been doing in that space within the market. So my colleague is going to join you in the meeting. He's going to take the presentation, Oluwafunta Olashemo. So please just help us, raise your hands or put some comments in terms of if you have any questions during the presentation. We'll attend to it. Thank you very much.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Trust we're keeping well and keeping safe. So I'll share my screen very quickly and then we'll get right into it. So again, thank you once again for joining in on this webinar. AFEX Commodities Exchange as an entity, we have the mandate of creating awareness around the commodity markets, and not just for the business side of it, but also for the economic impact that the commodity market has on the country. By way of starting, we would be looking at what commodity markets looks like, not just from a local perspective, also from a global perspective. And we'll be focusing on four main areas, which are, we try to understand what are these commodities, what are they. We look at what the commodity market is, and we look at what the agri-commodity landscape look like, and then we'll talk a bit about AFEX play in the commodities space. So when we talk about commodities, and we come in contact with commodities on a daily basis, from the coffee we drink, to the electricity we have in our houses, to the gas that we use in fueling our car, it is an integral part of our everyday life. And if we look at it on a global scale, commodities market form an integral part of the global economy. But putting it in very simple terms, commodities just can be defined as goods that have uniform quality and value that are then being delivered into the market by multiple players. Let's take note of two keywords: quality and value. So when we're talking about commodities in the market, two things are very important. The quality of the commodity that is being brought into the market. And the reason for this is because for a particular commodity, it can come from different sources or different customers. But to create some sort of standard and uniformity across that commodity, across different markets, the quality needs to be standardized, and there are minimum elemental standards that each commodities must have. These elemental standards are what they call the base grade. So take, for instance, if you're looking at trading of commodities like maize or sorghum or any of the grains, you're looking at minimum standard as to what the moisture content is, what are the amount of dead materials in that. So all of these then form how that commodity will be graded, and you hear things like a grade 1 commodity grain or a grade 2 grain. So those are the elements that forms the standard of whatever quality of commodity that is being supplied into the market. So when you see a grade 1 maize in a market, is the same quality as a grade 1 maize in India or in Europe, because the standards are there. Then when we're talking about the various types of commodities, they are being classified into two broad categories. We have what we call the hard commodities and we have what we call the soft commodities. The hard commodities are the ones that are mined out of the ground or they're gotten from other natural resources. So you have your metal falling under the category of hard commodities. You have your energy falling under the categories of hard commodities. But when we now talk about the soft commodities are the ones that are grown or you breed. So we have all the agricultural commodities coming under the soft commodities. And then we also have livestock commodities under the soft commodities. So those are the two simple broad categorizations of whatever type of commodity that's being traded across different markets in the world. Having defined what commodities are, let's look at what a commodity market is. A commodity market, like every other market, is a medium that brings together the buyers and the sellers. But in this instance, what is being the instrument being sold is the commodity. So we have a marketplace where the buyers and the sellers are connected to transact in commodities. And commodities markets have some features, and some of them is it can be a well-organized commodity market. Examples are your exchanges, or it can be an informal or an organized market, like you have your open markets where you have traders and farmers come together to sell harvests or commodities in the market. We could also have physical locations, again, like in your unorganized settings of commodities market. And it could be virtual, like in the exchange, in which the trading is happened virtually through the exchange trading platform. And in this instance, you can be in Nigeria and be trading commodities in Europe. So those are very unique characteristics of the commodities market. It can be formal or informal. It can happen within a physical location, or it can happen virtually. So let's just a quick look at some of the commodities around the world. And when I was preparing for this slide, I found a number of things very interesting about commodities markets around the world. So some of the things I found interesting is that some of the exchanges that you find around, commodity exchanges that you find around the world, some of them are either mostly trading in one commodity or the other. Although there are a number of commodity exchanges that do multi-commodities, in which instance they are trading more than one class of commodity. And one of the interesting things also is that most of the exchanges around the world deal in agri-based commodities, as against the other three types of commodities that we have. So we have examples of in Africa, the model exchange are usually the ones in South Africa and Ethiopia. So we have the Ethiopia Commodity Exchange, we have the South African Futures and Exchange. In Nigeria, we have AFEX Commodity Exchange, we have in Ghana as well. In Asia and Middle East, we're talking about the MCX, which are the largest in that region. We also have the Dubai Gold Commodity Exchange as well. Another interesting thing about commodity markets around the world, specifically in Africa, is that most commodity markets in Africa deals in sports trading, in which it's mandated that physical deliveries of these commodities happen. Unlike the advanced country, in which there are a lot of trading in derivatives. Although the only exception to the African story is the South African, who are, as at today, the only ones that trade in derivatives. Outside of that, most exchanges do sports trading in agriculture. So having looked at the examples of commodities, the commodity markets that we have across the world. So when we're looking at commodities market, we're looking at two broad categories of commodities market. You're looking at you're either playing in the derivatives space or you're playing in the cash market. The cash market is also known as the spot market, in which there's actual immediate delivery of the underlying assets. So in the cash market, you're actually trading the actual assets of that market, and there's usually immediate delivery of that of the assets that you've been traded. For the derivative, these are usually standardized contracts between parties. They have standardization, they have time of delivery. So there are contracts that have been standardized and then they make available for trading. So we have examples as your forward contracts, your options, your swaps, your futures contracts. So just quickly looking at what are the differences. Again, you're hearing spot market, derivative market. How do I know which one I would play in? What are the key differences in these two markets? So for the spot market, as I mentioned, you have the actual trading of the assets, and it usually require an immediate delivery of such assets between the buyers and the sellers. For the derivative market, you're trading instruments that have derived its value from an underlying asset. So what you're trading is not the actual assets, but an instrument that has been developed around an underlying asset for which a particular value has been placed on. In the spot market, settlement is usually near real time. And when I mean near real time, it is immediate. So you're having settlement happen either at T+1, T+2, or at max within a few days. But for the derivative market, settlement is usually at a specified future date. It is not real time. For the spot market, most of the players in the spot market usually are the actual consumers of these commodities. So you have the manufacturing or the processors being the key players in the spot market. But on the derivative market, you have speculators, you have those that want to hedge their risk, and you have the arbitrageurs playing in that space. And then another thing which is not included in this slide is that although there might be exception for it in some cases for the derivative market, is that in the spot market, the lot size is not predefined. It doesn't have a minimum, but on the derivative market, the lot size is predefined by the issuer or the exchange, and there's usually a minimum subscription or a minimum amount that you can enter such contracts or instruments with. So breaking it down, whether the now looking at the commodities market or a commodities exchange, what are the instruments that we can find to trade in such market? We have the futures contract, which is basically a standardized contract agreeing to a predefined amount of commodity to be delivered on a specified future date. The price is agreed at the time of the contract, but the date of delivery is in the future. The quantity and other terms are agreed at the time of the contract. Then we have the spot trade, in which it is the buying and selling of commodity for immediate. It is in the now, not in the future. And then we have your swap, which is usually some sort of agreement between two parties. And the transaction, the trading of swap happens over a specific period of time. And then we have our options instrument, in which basically two parties have agreed to facilitate a trade. There's a strike price, and then we have the indexes. So we could have your indexes are basically tracking either a commodity price and you're basically trading that instrument against a basket of commodities. So the basket can either be one basket of a commodity or a basket of commodities that you're looking at leveraging and getting of that commodity. So very quickly, we'll also look at who are the participants in this commodities market. Again, we talked about the derivative, we talked about the spot market. In the spot market, the key participants in the spot market are the buyers, and usually, in most cases for the spot market, the participants are actually the actual consumers of this commodity. So in the spot market, you see the producers, who are the farmers, and then the processors, who are using as feed to their production line, play in that space. But more on a broadly speaking level, on the derivative side, you have three main key players in that space. The hedgers, who are basically leveraging, they're basically trying to reduce their price, their risk exposure. They are trying to reduce their work against price volatility. So what they try to do is to take a position at an early stage and and then they kind of transfer that price risk to the market. So you see people locking into contracts, and the price of the contract is predetermined, but the delivery of that contract is at a future date. And then you have speculators who are basically looking at the price movement projections of commodities in the market, looking at and speculators tend to add liquidity to the market because they are constantly buying and selling and leveraging on price movements to get capital gain. Then we have the arbitrageurs who are basically looking at the inefficiencies of two markets for their own gain. So you have someone buying in and selling that commodity in another market that's listed as well. So he's buying an undervalued commodity somewhere and short selling in another market, and then he's making his own gain from that difference in those two markets. So commodity markets on a broader scale across the different categories, but we want to now bring it more specifically home to, just as I mentioned earlier, that looking at the commodity markets in across Africa, most of them are agri-based. Most of them trade spots, which require actual delivery of the commodity, the underlying asset, once the transaction is completed. So if we're looking at the agri-commodity space, there are key pillars that ensure that you run an efficient agri-commodities market, and these pillars are the operations that happen during the life cycle of that transaction. So you have the pre-trade activities, which is largely talking about the production, when farmers go to farm and they farm and then they bring in the grains. And when they bring those grains into the warehouses, those grains are then graded to determine what the grading will be like. Just as I mentioned, for every commodity that is traded in an exchange, there's a base grade. So the grade activities happen to determine to what extent each grade, the commodities brought into the space, meets certain minimum elemental standards. And the players in this, and the role of this pre-trade activity is to for quality assurance, basically. So if I am sitting in Lagos and I'm trading a maize that has its origin in Kaduna, I should be, and they're telling me it's a grade one. How do I know it's a grade one? I'm not going to go there and determine it's a grade one. But the grade that has happened, the handlers of commodities guarantees that quality. And then I can say I'm trading grade one, I'm trading a grade two, I'm trading an hybrid grade. Primarily in that space are the producers who are farmers, and then the traders that buy these commodities and then make them available for other groups to now trade on. And there are intermediaries also in all of these four pillars. So in the intermediary in that, those that provide agricultural services. So you have the fertilizer manufacturers, you have those that are providing the quality assurance services, and the services that you usually have in this space includes providing financial inclusion, which is financing farmers by providing them quality input products. You have education in terms of educating the producers on best practices. You have the grading, which I already explained extensively. And then you have the primary processor. Sometimes primary processors get directly involved in the pre-trade session just to guarantee some level of commodity supply to their production line. And the next pillar we'll quickly look at is the primary market, which is largely what the elements we have in those spaces is the OTC market, or the open market, where buyers and sellers come together to trade the commodity. And then we have elements of forwards contract in which there's been some sort of agreed price and quantity and date delivery happening. One of this, the primary market is mainly for price discovery. The key players in here are the processors, because they are the biggest user and they are the key player in this space. In terms of the intermediary services that are available in that space, you're talking about logistics and haulage, moving of those goods from where they produce to where they are going to be used. And then we're talking about other services like the structured trade financing, in which the providing finance to the manufacturer, to the producer on behalf of the processor. And then we have the secondary, the third pillar, basically where most investors would play, and that's where lots of liquidity happens. That's where a lot of the hedging happens. And then the primary players in that space are the investors who want either portfolio diversification, or the speculators who are looking at maximizing the gain on their investments. And then the instrument or the services that you typically find there, this is where you find the brokers, the fund managers, the investment managers, the rate issuing houses play a lot and provide a lot of service. And then we have the post trade. After the transaction happened, there's the post trade side. What you have here is basically to ensure securitization of whatever transaction happened at the secondary level or the primary level inclusive. And then you have storage, the element you have storage, and that the shelf life of these commodities are preserved. In terms of services, you have settlements of cash to the seller and settlements of commodities to the buyer. You have collateral, you have clearing and depository happening in basically. Hello? So, on the post trade, we have settlements happening, and in the future we're going to see lots of data analytics and technology evolving and becoming critical parts of the future exchange of commodity exchange. Oh, sorry about that. So let's quickly look at the fundamentals that drives the prices of commodities. Like every other market, the law of demand and supply generally drives the prices of commodities. And so where you have the supply chain being affected, automatically it affects the price. So in instances in which you have less supply than it is being demanded in the market, the price tends to go up. And then when you have more supply than what is being demanded, the price would go down. And that's principle apply across all the categories of commodities. Although much more specifically, there are other factors that influences the price movements of other commodities. So if we're looking at the agri commodity, for instance, we're looking at on the demand side, you're looking at disposable income. Disposable income basically is the income that consumers have to buy what they need, the services they need. So the more disposable income buyers have, or the consumers have, the more the demand for commodity, and the more demand for the product, and then ultimately the more for the commodity that underline the production of those products. We talk about population. Population generally, the more you have, as the population of a country grow, the demand for commodity in that country grow as well. And then in terms of consumer taste and preference tend to affect specific commodity rather than the overall demand of commodity class. So for instance, if there's an increase in the taste of people consuming cornflakes, for instance, there'll be an increase in demand for maize, but that doesn't necessarily going to affect the increase in demand for rice. So consumer taste and preference tend to affect specific commodities, underlying commodities that are used in producing them. Then we have environmental and cultural factor. So in a situation in which you have people eating more of food, it has an impact on the underlying commodities that are used in producing such goods or such foods. On the supply side, usually the quality of inputs is very critical to ensuring the supply. If in Nigeria, what we have a lot of mostly are smallholders farmers, and if the quality of input is not good enough, the level of production would drastically reduce. And usually most of these smallholder farmers have between 2 to 3, maximum of 5 hectares of farmlands. And so it is very important that the quality of input is right so that the supply is also guaranteed. Weather is a very, very key factor. So when the rain comes, to what extent the rain comes is important in determining the supply of commodities to the market. And we have the production level and the quality of input are kind of tied together. Production level basically is talking about how much can be gotten per hectare of farmland. And then we have actions of speculators. Speculators who are looking at if there's going to be an upward movement in price, they will tend to want to hold to the position of what they have. So that's invariably going to offset the supply level or the inventory, the supply inventory into the market. So I think we've spoke broadly about commodities market, players in the commodities market. Now, bringing this home, we want to talk more specifically about the role of AFEX Commodities in the Nigerian commodities space. AFEX as an entity has been in existence since 2004, and since inception, one of the things that we've done and we've done very well is ensuring that supply of commodities into the value chain, and this has enabled us to have direct farmers engagement. And over time, we've aggregated over 100,000 farmers, and these are actual farmers that have their farmlands geomapped and have financial footprint. Our goal is to ultimately aggregate up to 1 million smallholder farmers. And in terms of transaction, we've done more than $41 million US. We have presence in over 15 states, and we operate about 45 warehouses across these 15 states. As a start out, we're starting out in the agri space. The ultimate goal is to become a multi-commodities exchange. And but more specifically in the agri space, we're playing in the grain and the oil seeds. And the focus crops are the maize, the sorghum, the paddy rice, soybeans, ginger, and cocoa. We have 3 main play within the agri space in Nigeria, which is one is the farmers engagement, engaging the farmers and providing them with the right input, providing them with the right financial service, with financial inclusion, and ensuring that they have a place where they can store their harvest, basically. We also facilitate the smooth trading and settlement of commodity transaction, whether it's on the spot side or other fixed income instrument that we've developed. We also provide collateral management services as part of our service delivery. So having tried to create a framework around our operations, we've come up with 5 broad product categories that are currently that are available for investors who want to play in the commodity markets. So the first one is the spot market, which is basically a securitized version of your OTC market. So you don't need to go to Kaduna or Nasarawa to buy your truckloads of grains, you can actually trade spots on our platform. And then in instances in which you want physical delivery is then done. In instances in which you're just taking position for capital gain, that also happen. We have what we call the forward contract, which is basically is an over-the-counter instrument in which an agreed price, quantity, and a delivery date has been done with an off-taker, and investors are then subscribing to that contract. Then we have the input note, which is basically providing end-to-end input financing to farmers. And one of the biggest challenge of farmers in Nigeria is quality input. And AFEX has come up over 5 seasons to provide them with quality input in form of seedlings, in form of fertilizers, in form of providing them outreach services on best farming practices. We have the ABCP, which is helping processors raise working capital in form of enhanced credit enhancement structure. We also have the ETC, which is equivalent of your ETF that you have on the equity market. So it is, instead of having to trade individual commodity, you are either trading a basket of commodity or a basket of commodities that a fund manager has put together and made available for trading. One of the things, our mandate and our goal in this space is basically to say that the commodity ecosystem have been existing and has been existing for a while in silos, as well as the financial ecosystem. AFEX is looking at bridging that gap between the commodities market and the financial market. And that is what so on the financial side, we look at collaborating with fund managers, with brokers, with portfolio managers to create financial instruments that are offered as alternative asset classes to investors. And then on the commodities side, we're providing the key players in that space, the producers and the manufacturers, the appropriate services that they need, and by exposing them to financial services that have been provided on the financial ecosystem. And that has also informed us, again, without technology, COVID-19 has taught a lot of us, has taught everybody around the world that if you're not living in the technology, you've not started. And so we've launched, earlier in the year, we launched what we call COMEX, which allows you to trade commodity from anywhere you are in the world. And it's easy to use. Coming on board COMEX is as simple as downloading, and then you start trading whatever commodity catches your fancy. So the AFEX as an exchange has key participants, and we have the brokers who are basically buying and selling on behalf of the investors. We have the broker dealers that are basically buying and selling on behalf of investors, but can also trade proprietarily for them. They tend to play as market makers sometimes to create that liquidity in the market. And we have promoters who are also members of the exchange. They kind of are sub brokers. They are not allowed to trade on behalf of the investors, but they can provide advisory services to the investors. They usually have a community, they create a community on COMEX, and then they engage their community by providing them advice on what to invest. And then, of course, at the center of the exchange are the investors that actually do the buying and selling on the transaction on the exchange. And as I mentioned, to get started on COMEX is as easy as downloading the app on the Play Store on the Apple iOS, or by just going online and then sign up as whatever participants at whatever you want to participate. This would usually take less than a few minutes. And for brokers and the firm that are members of the exchange, these are the KYC requirements. AFEX is an entity that is regulated by SEC, and as such, these are requirements that must be met before you can become a broker dealer on the AFEX Commodities Exchange. So thank you. And I think we can take questions now. Honey, over to you. Hello, Kunle.
Oh, sorry. Hello.
Hi,
Hello, can
so
you
we
hear me
can
now?
take questions now. Questions, clarification, comments. We'll be happy to answer your questions.
Okay, so let me just look through the question slides basically. So the first one I'm seeing is, can we trade fractions of these commodities? So if I understand that clearly, we're saying, can you trade fractions of these commodities? Yes. So if this answers your question, we have on the platform called COMEX at the moment, we have the sports trades which are going on. So you need to get on the platform. It's available on Apple Play Store or Apple Store. So once you're on the platform, you register, you can trade unitized portion of this commodity. So you can buy 1 unit of maize of those focus crops that we have on the platform. So yes, you can trade fractions of them.
Okay, I think there's a question on what's the relationship between agri fintech company, basically asking what's the relationship between crowdfunding or the difference between crowdfunding, agri tech companies and AFEX. For starters, AFEX is a SEC regulated entity. And secondly, AFEX is an exchange. We are not a crowdfunding entity. We are an exchange. We're basically bringing together the buyers and the sellers to transact. So in that instance, we are neutral to the transaction. And when you transact on our platform, you're not locked in for an X amount of time. You can come in when you want and you can exit the transaction when you want. Most crowdfunding usually have a minimum that you must subscribe to, and then you're locked in for an X amount of time.
Okay, so I have another question that says something about, so does one have to be cleared as a broker or a broker dealer to be able to trade on COMEX? So to be able to trade on COMEX, you don't have to be cleared as a broker or broker dealer, because if you're buying, you're also trading. So you can trade as an investor. So, but if you want to be able to buy on behalf of your clients, technically you need to be registered as a broker dealer, so you can trade on their own on behalf of your clients. So you can trade proprietarily as a broker if you've registered according to the KYC requirements that we've provided as well. So yes. So, but to trade ordinarily, if you can register as an investor, so yeah, you can buy as an investor. But to buy on behalf of the client, you have to be registered as a broker dealer. So I can see, are there charts one can analyze, candlesticks charts especially? So we have, we do a dealer commentary, more like a newsletter that we send out to stakeholders, investors on our platform every now and then. So yeah, so we provide charts in terms of market reports and all those things for people to analyze, to be able to make informed decisions. So okay, you can, so yes, you can join to be able to receive those market reports. You need to go on AFEX website. So you put your email there, so thereby you subscribing. Or if we're sharing this presentation, we're going to put the link for you as well, so that you can subscribe for the newsletter and dealer commentary. Sorry, you are saying something, Funta.
So, okay, no, go ahead. So there's a question, someone asking if you have to be a SEC licensed, do you have to have SEC license before you can become a broker dealer? Yes, you have to be SEC licensed before you can become a broker dealer. And someone is saying, can I buy and sell from, so someone is joining us from Ghana and he's saying, can I buy and sell from Ghana? Yes, if you're looking at capital gain, and yes, you can buy and sell from Ghana. But if you're looking at the physical delivery of the commodities, then we begin to take into consideration the cost of logistics of delivering to Ghana. But if you're looking at it from a speculative perspective, in which you're just buying and selling the commodities for capital gain, yes, you can trade from anywhere in the world.
Okay, I have another question from Augustus. He said, explaining to someone without knowledge of commodity trading, when you buy 1 unit of maize, for example, is there a compulsory amount that you need to hold the commodity before you sell? Are there commodities fixed income or have fixed are fixed on a percentage? Are they like stock trades, buy low and sell high at your discretion?
Okay, so
So
that's
to answer, yeah. Oh, do you want to take it or I take it?
yeah. Let me take that question. So that's a lot of questions in one. So in terms of when you buy unitized commodities on the exchange, is there a time you should hold it for? The answer is yes and no. Yes, in the sense that you can hold it for as long as you want. But the caveat to that is that you should hold it for as long as it is economically viable. And here's the reason. Commodities usually have a time cycle. So particularly agri, you have a planting season and an harvest season, then there's another season that comes in place. And what would typically happen is when you are at harvest, prices are usually low, depending on when you come into the market to buy. And then as you move away from harvest towards the next planting season, prices go up to a maximum. But when a new harvest season comes, you really you can't determine what that price would be. Usually it will be lower than the last price that you had. So for you to hold on to your commodities, for you, it has to be for as long as you think it is economically viable. You can hold for 3 seasons, but there are fees. Once you hold beyond a particular time, there are fees that would apply on the exchange for holding for that more than 1 season, basically. And then are the commodities fixed incomes? They are commodities. So again, I think I explained the different types of instruments that are traded on the commodities exchange. So we have fixed income like instruments which have commodities as underlying assets. So that is where you have things like the futures or the forward contract that you can subscribe to. So, but if you're trading the spot market, it is not fixed income. It is like you're trading your stock. It's like you're buying your 2 units of Zenith, your 5 units of GT. The same way you can buy 3 units of maize, 5 units of sorghum. And then in terms of discretion as to when to buy, you need to know when to enter the market, like the stock market, understanding what affects price movement and on entering the market at the appropriate time for capital gain. And then also knowing when to exit the market.
Okay. Okay, so we have a lot of questions as it is. It said, I have something about how can someone become a member of the AFEX Commodity in Nigeria? So becoming a member, it depends on the level you're participating. Like during the, in the presentation, there's a slide that discussed about you being a broker dealer, a promoter, or you become a member by being an investor. So as a promoter, you don't need to have a SEC license or to be a licensed broker to be able to be a member. So if you technically have a pool of, let's say, a pool of network whereby you can influence them in terms of advising them to be able to make investment decisions. So you can come in as a promoter where you can also learn on the platform and thereby get your own community to be able to invest, and you earn some fees when they do trades. So as a broker dealer or a broker, if you are technically registered as a broker in SEC, you meet those minimum requirements to be able to trade, to be able to be a member, to perform as a member or as a broker or a broker dealer in the AFEX Commodities Exchange. Sorry, I've been told a couple of people are raising their hands up, and
so sorry.
You can drop your comments in the So
for those, let's take 1 or 2 people that have raised their hands as well.
Okay, that's good. So while we just look through.
Yeah, Adana, can you help us unmute the number of people that have raised their hands, please? Okay, I think Stephen Atia. Let's unmute.
Okay. Hello everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, I'm new to everything that is going on, so I'd like give it to us in a milk form. Those of us who are new to all this, I saw the post and a series of ads on IG, so I got interested. So kindly just educate me. How does this work? How do I benefit? Thank you.
Okay, so let me take a quick stab at that, and because we would get your details and contact you for more. But for starters, commodities trading basically is like trading your stock or your equity market. But this time around, you're trading you're trading commodities. And what trading commodities really entails, people trade commodities for different reasons. You could want to do it for the capital gain, in which you're buying low and you're selling high. You can also trade commodity to diversify your portfolio so that you can hedge against volatility in the market. So you probably have investment in equity, you have investment in real estate. So commodities is also an alternative asset class that investors can put their money in to diversify their portfolio. Commodities are traded on structured commodities are traded on the exchange, like we have at AFEX, and you can download our COMEX to have an idea of what trading commodities on the exchange feels like. And just as I mentioned, we have different kinds of commodities. We have the metal commodities where you have your gold. We have the energy commodities where we have your crude oil. We have the agri commodities where you have your maize and the rest of them. We have the livestock commodities. I hope that gives like a quick overview for someone that is starting out. We would contact you and then engage you further to provide you the necessary information.
Okay. Sorry, just a quick one. There's a question from Ayokomi. If I buy commodity on your platform in order to hold position, is there a fee involved? What if I'm holding for 4 months? So yeah, there are fees involved typically for when you do trades. So those fees are they typically accrue to the brokers, their brokerage fee that we can share the terms of percentage. But the maximum fees that are taken is not more than beyond 1.5% of what you're buying, of the face value of what you buy. So those are the fees that accrue. The same way you get those fees on equities, on the equities market. So technically, those are the fees that that are accrued on the platform as well. So,
okay. Okay, so someone is asking, how can a company with an investment app like Robinhood key into AFEX Commodities?
yeah, that's an interesting question.
So we AFEX as an exchange, our platform, we have standard APIs that we can make available, and you can integrate into our system to make commodities trading available on your own on your own app. So if it's something you're interested, reach out to us, and then we can discuss how that integration between the two systems can happen.
Okay, I also saw a question from Jay, Sam J. He said, can SEC FMDQ OTC dealer license make you eligible to apply for a broker-dealer role on the AFEX exchange? So typically, we put out some of the KYC requirements. Yeah, we'll just follow up with you to ensure that we look at some of the documentations that you have, then we take it further. So
the simple answer for that is yes.
Is yes, yeah, okay.
So long you're regulated. Okay. What are some of the names of the commodity brokers that we have? We have a number as of today, we have put together across fund managers and brokers. We have over close to 30 of those on our exchange. So we have the likes of Afri Invest, we have DSU, we have Woodland Capital, we have Vetiva Security. We have a number of commodity brokers on our exchange. Can I get the commodities delivered to me? Yes. So that's in the instance in which you want the physical delivery of the commodity.
Okay, so you also mentioned gold, energy, oil, but I can't see these commodities on COMEX. I can see only agri. So what Punto said earlier during our presentation was that we hope to be a multi-commodities trading platform, but at the moment we're starting with agri commodities, and we are focusing on those crops that you can see on the platform. Sometime later the year, earlier this year, we had a MOU signed with Dubai Gold Exchange to cross-list gold on the platform. So we're putting some of those things in the works, and you probably start seeing that as the year goes. So we are hope to be a multi-commodities platform. You will see some other commodities on the platform, but for now we have agri commodities. Yeah.
I don't know, still within the time frame because we don't want to take too much time from everyone.
Exactly. So we're gonna do a follow-up with some of the questions that we have, so that we are able to attend to some of these questions, and we will share the slides as well and the recording after the presentation. So after this webinar.
So thank you so much, everyone, for taking time to join us. It's an hour already, and we wouldn't want to take too much of your time. Our next webinar will be coming up next week. So the series of webinars we're having is to educate the market as to what is happening within in the commodity space in Nigeria and globally. And so we would have series of this in which we would love you to be a part of. We look forward to having you, and thank you very much, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.